Hi, welcome to my channel. I am Ricardo Costa, and on this video I will try to help you understand how layers work in Photoshop. Before start working, let's understand our layers panel. By default, you should already have your layers panel down here. If not, you can go to menu window and hit layers. The layers panel in Photoshop lists all layers, layer groups, and layer effects in an image. So let's go understanding what are layers. As a new Photoshop user, you're going to find that Layers panel is an incredible powerful tool. The Layers panel gives you the ability to isolate individual pieces of content away from the rest of composition, giving you the ability to work on individual elements within the overall document. This can be used for something as literal as some type or something as subtle as a small brush stroke to add a highlight or shadow to an image. They also keep you organized. You want to keep all of your content separated if possible, because that's going to afford you the most flexibility when working inside Photoshop. Every new Photoshop document starts off with a background layer, and that background layer by default is white and it's also locked, which means when we try to do certain things, like for instance with the move tool selected up here, if we try to move this layer, it's going to tell us that you can do that because it's a background layer and you can't move it unless you unlock it or convert to a normal layer. Okay, so what you can do is click on the lock icon on your background layer and that converts it to a normal layer. And now this layer is probably filled with white. So if we move this white layer, you can see that you get a little checkerboard here. And this checkerboard layer you see means transparency. That means that currently what's on this layer only covers this space here and that there's nothing over here. The way layers work is that they stack on top of each other and anything that's on the top is the first visible thing. Like I said before, Photoshop layers are like sheets of stacked estate. You can see through transparent areas of a layer to the layers below. Let's quick undo this action by clicking on Command Z and start doing some basic composite to understand better how they stack up to each other. For now, we have only the layer 0, which is our background layer painted in white. I am going to select the rectangle tool by clicking and hold on the ellipse icon on my tool panel so that it will appear more options of this tool, like the rounded rectangle, ellipse tool, polygon tool, line, and if I just grab the rectangle, we will make a rectangle or a square out here on our canvas. But before draw it, with the tool selected, I can go up here to our toolbar, which now has the rectangle tool properties. I can simply change my fill and stroke color and other options. I will click on this slash for the stroke, which means I don't want color here, and select my stroke something like blue, and now I can just click and drag on my canvas to begin the design of my rectangle or square. So now on Photoshop CC, if you click and drag, it will scale by the shape proportionally like this, but if you hold shift you can draw a random shape and then you can let go and you got something like this. And now you can look at our layers panel and you can see that we have now created a new shape layer above the layer 0. And this shape layer, it's a different type of layer of the layer beneath. There are layers with images, paint layers, blank layers, text layers, shape layers, adjustment layer, which actually aren't visible, but instead they affect other layers. And all of these sorts of layers can be stacked up here on the layers panel. So any layer on top is the first layer visible, and we can do different things to it to show layers underneath, but we will see it next. Let's now create another layer. Let's click on Select Tool because it's like doing something like a deselect of the shape, and we're going to add some text to our work, which is other type of layer. So I'm going to click on the Type tool here, and then click on the canvas to add some text in that spot where we want to add some text. Let's change here on top the color to some green and hit OK. to select that color and click here and start typing something like hello all, and now you can click on select tool to clear selections. Actually, this is a kind of habit to click on select tool after doing something, but there are some people which also clicks on move tool if they have the tick of show transform controls deactivated, so that we have the feeling that we don't have anything selected of or that we don't mean to have selected. So now you can check that I've created a layer down here which is appear on top of other layers, and I also have the rectangle here. The text layer is on top of the rectangle, which is on top of the background layer, so with all of sort of this, the first visible layer should be the text layer, and to confirm that, if I use the move tool and move this text layer over on top of my rectangle shape layer, you will notice that it's first visible. I see hello all, and then behind is the rectangle and behind my white background. But what if now you want your text layer to be underneath our rectangle layer? You can just simply click and drag your text layer here, which is now going to make the rectangle first visible, and then the text underneath that, and then the background. Another interesting thing you can do with layers is that through other layers there are blending modes. If you look at this normal mode here on the layers panel, if you open the drop-down menu and then select different blending modes like multiply for example, this layer will have some behavior with others. They all do sort of different things. This is hard to see on this example, but it does change the color a little bit. But let's change our rectangle color to some kind of red. And what you can get here is not that the text layer is on top of the red color. We are seeing through the red color and we blended it with the multiply blend mode. There are more blending modes, but I am not sure which ones will actually show much of this working with these colors. And for example, on this one lighten mode, you can not see the rectangle through the white color of background except for where the text layer is. So on the blending modes, it's a brand new world to explore how colors and layers behave between them. Other basic option that we use many times is the opacity option, which is like your visibility level for the layer. So now this layer is 100% visible, and if I change it to 40%, it's going to be 40% see through the other layer. If you reduce even more the opacity to 10%, for instance, you can barely see this layer, or even 0%, which is full transparent. But for this, if you want to put it invisible, you can simply go to this icon here that set the visibility of your layer to on off, so at any time during your work you can show or hide layers. This is very important because sometimes you are trying to work on a specific layer that is underneath another. So let's say for instance I want to work on my text layer here, I can hide my shape layer there, change the text, and after finish I can show the shape layer again and continue working on my project. Okay, now let's say if you want to paint on one of these layers, you can add a new layer here or hit Command Shift N and it will add a new layer here on top of all the other layers, and you can also see that checkerboard pattern, which means that that layer is transparent, so there's nothing on it. But if I select my paintbrush over here and then I can select up here on my toolbar the size of the brush, the type of the brush, the hardness and softness, and plenty of other options. So I will just select here something and select here my foreground color and start painting something on my canvas. As I am drawing on my canvas, if you take a look on the layer you've created, you can see that the same drawing is appear on this thumbnail, which means that if I hide all of the other layers, you can notice that what I've drawn is currently on this layer and are on top of other layers. And of course I can also drag this layer like before underneath my shape layer and my rectangle will be on top. You will see the rectangle on top, then my paintbrush in second, text layer on third, and so on. And this is how these layers sort of behave. everything stacks on top of other layer. And before going to shortcuts and some tips about your layers panel, what if I want to add a shadow to my text layer? You can select your text layer here and click on this icon here, or simply double click on the layer and hit blending options. You have here many menu options, which we needed a whole new tutorial for that. But I will just click here in drop shadow and change a few things here on opacity, size, distance and spread, and hit OK, and you will notice that it added here this shadow, and in our layer panel it appears this effect associated to my text layer, and if I don't want it anymore I can just hide the effect and my text layer will stay there like before. Okay, so now let's go for some shortcuts and tips in your layers panel. You can click on top of your layer's name to rename it. In my case, I like to do it because when you are working with dozens or thousands of layers, it will help your work to become easily when it comes to select the layer you want to work. If you hit Command G, duplicates a layer. If you hit Command E, automatically merge the layer with the layer beneath. If you select multiple layers and click Command E, it will merge all together. Command G makes a group, and inside of it you can also have the previous commands. To create a new task, you hold Command Shift N, but if you don't want to use shortcuts, you have on these little bar icons that allow you to do some actions like delete layer, new layer, group, add an adjustment layer, mask layers, which will be a very important topic to discuss in the future, and effects to layers. Also, on top of our panel, besides opacity and blending modes, you can also filter your layers by image, text or other properties you need. And that's it about what are layers and how they behave. The layers panel is a powerful tool in Photoshop, and the more you work on it, the more important you will find it that it's even more powerful. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure you give a like on this video and don't forget to subscribe to not miss any other tutorials. See you next time!